Hello, everyone. This is Kilo Echo 7 Victor Lima Charlie for the Mesa Amateur Radio Club. Here is a short little video of some very important news items that are going on in the amateur radio world. And I'm putting this out primarily because we've got a couple other things that are going on. And this came out on some of the forums, some of the like 100 watts in a wire Facebook pages, Reddit forums, and a couple other ham radio forums, QRZ, a couple other places. I've been seeing this all around, and I think a lot of people are kind of confused as to what in the world's actually going on. And so I wanted to bring this to our club's attention to, basically set things kind of straight in a way. So tonight's topic is going to be about and I'll flip over here so you can see this here. This is a very important page right here. Um, on June 6th, the French administration put in a short notice for a modified proposal to the WRC 19 preparatory group at the SEPT meeting. That's going to be WRC 19, and I'll go into the terminology here in just a second. But what this feasibility study does is it creates a study group for additional aeronautical mobile services allocations in the range of 144 megahertz to 22.2 gigahertz. You're thinking, oh, so what? Who cares? Oh, we don't even go up to 22.2 gigahertz. Well, the most important part of this whole entire thing is the fact that the proposal includes 144 to 146 megahertz. All right. If you take a look at your band charts, that's basically some of the space in the amateur radio realm, and it is kind of important that we take a look at this, and pay attention to this. Now, this is not going to affect us directly, but it might actually affect us indirectly, or maybe later on down the road, and I'll explain that a little bit as to why that's going to affect us. All right. But for right now, what I want you to understand is that we're talking about the French proposal to basically use 144 to 146 megahertz for an aeronautical mobile services. And that includes their drones and their surveillance systems and stuff of that nature. This is the reason why we really need to pay attention to this. There's actually two reasons why. As of right now, the only delegation that actually made it very clear that they were against this proposal was Germany. And everybody's up in arms, screaming and yelling, going, oh no, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And no. It is not falling. And I'll explain a little bit here as to why in the world the sky is not falling, why you don't have to worry too much right now. All right. Basically what is being done is it's being set up to be discussed on an international basis at the next CEPT meeting, which is the World Radio Communications Conference 19, which I believe is in August. So it's just a proposal right now. It hasn't actually been fully discussed, and there's a lot of other things that need to go on with this. But let's step back for a moment here. All right, what we want to do is we want to talk about what is SEPT, okay? European Conference of Postal and Telecommunications Administrations, all right? They're basically the FCC of the world, okay? We'll put it in kind of layman terms. They're basically the FCC of the world. They're the ones that, Verizon and AT&T and Sprint approach to try to win over band privileges and things of this nature. Okay. Currently, we have a SEPT license that allows us to operate our amateur radio privileges over in Europe. So if you travel to Europe, as long as you have your FCC little card that says that you are an amateur radio operator, you're allowed to operate over there in Europe. So it's a very cool little concept. It's a very and this is something that the IARU actually pushed, as well as a whole bunch of other member societies. All right. So the next one that we need to talk about is the IARU. Okay, and we're going to start off with the home here. This is the Worldwide Voice of Radio Amateurs. You recognize that symbol? guess what? The ARRL uses that same, pretty much the same symbol for their logo. Ah, Mesa Amateur Radio Club on our Arizona flag. Guess what we have? We have pretty much the same logo up there. Yep, that's right. So, amateur radio must organize nationally and internationally for better mutual use of the radio spectrum among radio amateurs throughout the world, to develop amateur radio worldwide, and to successfully interact with the agencies responsible for regulating and allocating radio frequencies. The IARU doesn't actually allocate bands, okay? They're just an organization that goes and petitions on behalf of us, or behalf of each one of the members that belong to it, to the SEPT, which then basically goes, okay, will hear your information. Okay, this is going to interfere with them, with the amateurs, and this is going to interfere with the cellular providers, blah, so on and so forth. All right. And so what it is national societies throughout the world work together for the international good of amateur radio under the auspices of a representative democracy. So here we go. We're talking about politics now, all right? And this is very important. This is pretty much the only time that we really like talking about politics. Vinny, on the other hand, he loves going off on about politics, but, I try to stay away from it as much as possible. But so let's go into the history of the IARU really quick, okay? To exist, amateur radio must have an access to the radio frequency spectrum. Obviously, without our access to 20 meters, 40 meters, 2 meters, 70 centimeters, etc., our hobby would be gone. We would have no hobby. We'd have no radio frequencies to actually transmit on. So what we need is a group of individuals or a group of nations to go and speak on our behalf. Okay? Yeah, and in here they talk about it. They say, our radio equipment is like an automobile without a road, or a boat without water. How useful is a boat without a body of water? I mean, yeah, you can sit there and look at it and go, oh, look how pretty it is. But other than that, it does you no good. So you need to have the radio frequencies. So in other words, we need to fight for our frequencies. Now, the IARU is what the Mesa Amateur Radio Club really actually believes in. And unfortunately, the ARRL has really kind of gone off on a deep end on emergency communications, because technically speaking, amateur radio didn't really come about for emergency communications. Regardless of what anybody says, amateur radio exists for the purposes of self-training, intercommunications, and technical investigations. In other words, it's a hobby for people to go out and explore the radio realm and electronics realm. All right. We must be afforded reasonable access to the spectrum from the lowest frequencies to the highest. And unfortunately, there's a lot of commercial interests that are willing to pay billions upon billions of dollars, and even into the trillions nowadays, to get a hold of specific frequencies. And this is the reason why we keep saying, oh, we need to use it or lose it type thing. Okay, we got to use our amateur spectrum, because if we don't, we might lose it. And, it really comes down to, okay, if we don't use our 2-meter band, the FCC might simply say, well, okay, who's the next highest bidder to bid on these frequencies? So if Verizon comes along with, say, $25 billion and says, hey, listen, we'll pay you $25 billion to, basically allow us that chunk of frequency, the FCC is basically, well, almost like half of our government, some of our government, they're coin driven. I'm sorry to say it, but governments are coin driven, which is sad. In reality, they're not supposed to be coin driven. They're supposed to be basically listening to what the people want and doing what the people want. But nowadays, the government is basically coin driven. Anytime that they can get extra money from somebody for something that they don't really actually do anything other than control who has access to it, of course they're going to take it. Recently the Florida DMV has been accused of um, selling driver's license information to private companies. Companies like Facebook and Macy's and all these other companies. They've been selling their private data, their addresses and phone numbers and date of births and stuff of this nature to these private companies. And apparently, the Florida DMV just made over $77 million for selling their DMV records to private companies. All right, this is exactly my point. This is exactly what happens. If we don't pay attention to it, we're going to be stomped on by these large corporations. All right. The radio spectrum is so valuable that even government and military users are under great pressure to relinquish frequencies for commercial exploitation or exploration in some words and sometimes. Um, so, how can we, as radio amateurs, defend and expand our spectrum access? Technically speaking, we're not a rich group of people. Okay, we're not ponying up, hundreds of thousands of dollars per person to help fight off these frequency hogs. Okay, so here's what happened in the 1920s. Everybody was kind of assuming that radio communication was only going to take place over long distances using very long waves, and that the lower frequency the better. And nowadays, it's actually the short waves that are really, are the shorter waves. 2 meters, 440, the 70 centimeter bands, and so on and so forth. Those are the ones that a lot of these companies really want and are really hungry for. But they still like to have our lower frequencies, our 20-meter band, our 40-meter band, our 80-meter band, because of the reliability of those frequencies, the reliability of those radio waves to propagate long distances for very little money is very profitable for them, So there are some smart people back in 1925 that decided, hey, listen, let's meet in Paris and create the International Amateur Radio Union, or the IARU. Okay? Now, initially, the IARU had individual members, all right? And there was only a handful of people that were actually into the hobby. Back then, they didn't have Yaesu radios they could go down to HRO and purchase. These were people that were tinkering around with tubes and, resistors and capacitors and stuff of that nature until transistors started coming along and stuff of that nature. So there was not enough members to give every single country a representative, although there were a few members from each country that were saying, hey, listen, I'm going to represent us or whatever. And so they would pitch in and try to help out. Now, once there were enough members in a given country to become a member society, that's when the IARU decided, okay, let's start doing it this way. So we have a member society now rather than an individual member. And what does this mean? It means you can't go out to the IARU website and go, I want to become a member. No. You actually have to become a member of your country's member society to become a member of the IARU. Technically speaking, that's the only way you could do it nowadays. All right. So what is a member society? Well, let's take a look at the regions. We've got 3 different regions. We've got Region 1, Region 2, and Region 3. If we click on the region page, here we go. Some of you have probably seen this map, and you can see clearly the distinct boundaries here. Okay, you got this gray boundary right here. Okay, gray boundary right here all the way down, and another gray boundary up right through here. If you look down here, you see an ITU Region 1, Region 2, and Region 3. Okay, this is the way the ITU, or the International Telephony Union, does it, and I can't remember exactly how that is. I could look it up, but anyways, the IARU decided to kind of mimic that. All right. So what they ended up doing was, okay, well, this is Region 2, this is Region 1, and so they've got Region 1 is Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Northern Asia, including Russia. Region 2 is the Americas, so Greenland, United States, Canada, Mexico, Chile, so on and so forth. And then Region 3 is Asia Pacific, so that includes Australia, Indonesia, New Zealand, etc. All right. So what does this mean? Well, let's take a look at Region 2, which is where we are. Okay. So there's what the emblem looks like for the IARU region number 2. So we come down through here. We got our member societies right here. And notice, oh my gosh, look at this. Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, and then Argentina, and then Aruba, Bahamas. Oh, they're countries. Oh my gosh, can this really be? Well, each country has a member society that is represented by the IARU. So they actually have somebody that represents each country at the IARU. For Aruba, it'd be the Aruba Amateur Radio Club. So if you lived in Aruba, if you want a voice in the IARU and internationally, you need to join up to the Aruba Amateur Radio Club. There's one for Cuba. There's one for Dominica. There's even one for Mexico, the Federation, and I'm going to butcher this, and I do apologize for my Spanish, Federación Mexicana de Radio Experimentadores. All right. So who's our representative to the IARU here in the United States? It's the ARRL, the American Radio Relay League. So for those of you who sit there and say, "Well, I don't want to become a member of the ARRL because I don't like the way they handle things, and I don't agree that they have my voice and all this other stuff." Well, guess what? You're basically saying, "I don't want a voice at the international table," is what you're saying. Now, technically speaking, the American Radio Relay League doesn't actually do that. They represent everybody in the United States, regardless of whether or not you are a member or not. But I strongly recommend that you do become a member. Okay? And I'm just going to handle that right now. So, again, I'm going to put the ARRL up there. I'm not a big fan of what the ARRL does. I'm not a big fan of the way they preach emergency communications like it's, the only way that we're going to save our frequencies is by pushing our emergency communications agenda. And I disagree with that. I personally think that ham radio is a hobby, that it will always be a hobby, and that it should always be treated as a hobby first. It's a hobby that has a service capability. You are capable of providing a service to your local community through your hobby. There's not many other places that are not many different hobbies out there that can actually do this. I mean, I guess if your hobby is quilting, you could make quilts to donate to the American Red Cross or, Salvation Army, or to your local church, or to your local homeless shelter or something like that. I guess if you were a knitter or a crocheter, I guess you could crochet things and donate to them as well. And if you were a gardener, I guess you could grow some crops and donate to the local, food bank or something of that nature. But there's not many hobbies. I mean, if you are an RC airplane enthusiast and you go out there and you fly your RC aircraft around, you don't really actually, there's no real way of you contributing to your local community. Not in the same fashion that the amateur radio hobby does, okay? We can provide emergency communications when other means of communications is down, all right? And that's going to be for another topic, at another time. I'm not going to go out and talk about this too much today. Anyways, if you really want a good voice in the international community, you need to join the ARRL. And I'll just put that out there right now. So let's go back to what this is, okay? So since the latest SEPT meeting is over, they're going to be talking about it at the next agenda proposal. And I don't necessarily know or believe that that is correct. I believe that the next one is actually in August, and somebody can actually chime in the comment section down below. Don't. Oh, and don't forget to come over here and press the subscribe button and make sure you turn the little chime on so that you get notified that new video has popped up. Anyways, let's go back to what we're talking about here. Um, so the IARU actually does see this as a grave concern and is really, really troubled by this, okay? So they are going to fight for, well, basically they're going to fight for Europe's right for the 2 meter band because that's what it's going to affect is Europe. Um, and I'll talk about some other things a little bit later on down the road here. So um, it's going to be basically they're trying to push this onto the agenda. All right. Now, if we take a look at who the French attendees were for this specific proposal, according to this website that I found, there were 13 attendees from France that were actually pushing this agenda. 6 of them are representatives of corporations, okay? Out of those 6 corporate representatives, 4 are from a specific area in France, okay? And I don't know what Thales is, but you can read down through here and research, who these people are and everything. Now, I have a big issue with having corporate representatives at something of this nature. However, at the same time, well, guess what? This is probably affecting them. These are the guys that are really trying to push this. And I have a feeling it's because they've been trying to use commercial drones for surveillance and police activities and things of that nature. So they want to get a leg up on getting the government grants and everything to provide money for them to develop these drones and everything. So we just got to watch out for it. So so what can we do? All right. So this is just it's a proposal right now. Okay. They need to sit down and they need to discuss it. They need to talk about it. They need to basically allow people and other nations to basically step up and say, here's why we don't like it, or here's why we like it, or we frankly just don't care. All right. So somebody else posted, and I think it was actually on this one here, or maybe it was on this one here. They were somewhere, and I can't remember exactly where it was. Let's see here. Let me try to find it here again. It was kind of interesting because what ends up happening is, in order for this to pass, something like 10 out of, in order for this to fail to go through, something like the majority, I think it's like 10 countries in Europe would have to basically say, we do not like this, and then it would be basically squashed, okay? Now, if they don't get the 10 basically down votes, and, basically abstaining means we don't care one way or the other, but if there are enough people in there to say, nope, we don't like it, we disagree with it, then chances are it won't go through, all right? So we gotta be concerned about it. And the reason why here in the United States we got to be concerned about it is if this happens in Europe, chances are some corporations over here in the United States are going to try to do the exact same thing that's happening over there. All right? And they're going to sit there and say, well, if it passed over there, then it's going to happen over here in the United States. So for those of you who are sitting there going, well, we don't have anything to worry about because this is for Europe and Europe only, you're wrong. 100% incorrect. It's the old adage of you give a corporation an inch and they're going to take a mile. Well, in this case, probably a whole bunch of kilometers. All right. So We just got to be worried about it. And I just wanted to kind of set this straight as to exactly what actually needs to happen. And I'll put all these links and everything in the show notes and everything, so that you guys can actually go out there and make your own informed, deduction and inquiry on this and everything. All right. So I don't want to get too upset or anything like that, but this is something that we need to be paying attention to. Um, and again, if you are worried about it, join the ARRL. They're our voice at the IARU. All right. Um, so what I'm trying to say is, don't jump to conclusions just yet. What needs to happen is, first they have to have a discussion, then they have to vote on it. Okay. This is going to take upwards of a couple years to even happen. Okay. So we're looking at least 4 years. If the vote goes through, it says yes, then they're going to have to do a study on it. They're going to have to do a feasibility study, and they're going to have to analyze all the radio traffic, whether or not this is going to actually cause an interference or things of that nature. And the one thing that you guys have to really understand is, in reality, they're not taking away the band. They're not going to say, well, you're not allowed to operate on 2 meters. What they're going to do is make us secondary users. So just like, I believe, 70 centimeters and I want to say 60 meters, um, we're secondary users. And what that means is, if there's another organization that is utilizing the band and they're licensed for it, we can't interfere with them, and we have to cease communications immediately. All right. So if you're transmitting on, say, let's say this goes through, and there's a group that's using a 2 meter portion of the band and everything, and it's you go and you transmit and everything, and you start interfering with their operations, they can turn around and get you in a little bit of hot water. Now, here in the United States, what will happen is the FCC will send you a pink ticket in the mail saying, hey, listen, we found out through the primary operator users of this specific frequency that you were interfering with their operations. Please cease your operations on that frequency. Okay, so it's not like they're going to be stripping it away from us, but we're going to end up becoming secondary to everybody else, to the aeronautical world. Okay, so we just got to be wary of it. Okay. And like I said, don't jump to conclusions. There's a couple change.org petitions going around, and quite honestly, it's ridiculous. Stay away from it. Don't jump down that whole entire rabbit hole of, oh, I got to sign this petition. The petition that you're signing is going to do absolutely no good. And the reason why is because we're going to go right back to that whole entire thing of who's the voice of the United States to the IARU. It's not that change.org petition. That change.org petition is just going to be frowned upon. They're going to look at it. They're going to say, whatever, we don't give a crap about that. So here's what the IARU president is saying about this whole entire thing. He says the organization empathizes with the concerns of radio amateurs worldwide regarding the French proposal to allocate 144 to 146 for aeronautical services on a primary basis, essentially sharing it with the amateur radio. Now, they're saying the band is currently allocated to amateur radio on a primary basis around the world, and that's the key figure right here, is the primary basis. Okay, so he says that the IARU is actually on top of the matter. Just because you're not seeing any news or CNN news flashes or anything like that, don't worry, don't panic, because they are on top of it. This is going to be a slow moving boat. Nothing in our government works as quickly. Okay, so it's going to take a little while. There's a lot of red tape that they have to cross. They have to do feasibility studies, etc., etc. Okay, there is a lot of misinformation circulating as to what the proposal is seeking and how the IARU is responding to it. So again, don't jump to conclusions. Like I said, and I don't remember if I actually did say this, our society nowadays has so much fake news circulating out there that it's hard to tell exactly what the truth is. And I would rather you sit there and look at something and investigate it before you make the conclusion that something is real, all right? So please hold your worry about this and let the IARU do its job, all right? Um, the petitions that are going around and the concern, it's all well intended, and they're going to have, but they're going to have limited value, all right? This is like a person showing up at a disaster with their handheld radio going, I'm here with, I'm here to help out. They're just going to look right at you and go, well, we never asked for your help, get lost. And they're going to basically make us look bad. All right. So all these petitions and everything, they're just making us look like we're goofballs, that we don't understand anything, that we're complete klutzes when it comes to this stuff, and we have no clue about politics, and it's just going to make us look all bad. All right. So my recommendation is, if you do come across one of these change.org petitions and somebody going, hey, sign it, just simply just either toss it out, ignore it, or respond back to the person saying, nope, I would rather join the ARRL than sign your petition. All right. So there's a lot of little things that are going to have to go on. All right. It's, if accepted as a WRC 23 agenda item, okay, and WRC dash 23 stands for the World Radio Communications Conference 2023, okay, and we're in 2019 now. This is very important here, okay? So the proposal is going to go on to the agenda item for 2013, okay? Once there, it's going to require 4 years of studies to make sure that this proposal is done right and it's not going to cause problems and things of that nature, all right? So if you want to help out and become members of your IARU member society, then you need to join the ARRL or your own world, basically society, your member society. You can always come over to the IARU.org and click on the regions, find your region, and dig down as to who exactly it is, all right? So if we go into region 1, okay, let's go down through here. Let's find the United Kingdom here, okay? Britain, Great Britain. So the United Kingdom's member society is the Radio Society of Great Britain, the RSGB. So my recommendation to all of you Brits, all of you people that are currently residing in the United Kingdom, join the Radio Society of Great Britain, all right? Zimbabwe Amateur Radio Society. If you're residing in Zimbabwe and you have a Zimbabwe amateur radio license, join this radio society right here, okay? So it's very easy to find. All you need to do is sign up with your member society, and now all of a sudden your voice is going to be heard, all right? So right now, I'm just going to basically turn it back over. I'm going to say, I hope everybody understands exactly what it is. If you have questions, feel free to ask it in the comment section below. Don't hesitate to ask questions. If you've got a topic that you would like to have us discuss or talk about, much like today's episode, feel free to comment down below or get a hold of me or send an email over to the admin at wm7rc.org email. Or you can always contact me at Kilo Echo 7 Victor Lima Charlie at wm7rc.org, and we will definitely take a look at the topic and see what we can do for it. All right, so I'm going to say, for now, I hope all of you got a little bit of education as to who the IARU is, how to join up, and what they kind of look at, and a little bit of the history. If you're still interested in more, please see the links down below. I will include those links. And so for now, I'm going to say 73 from Whiskey Mike 7 Romeo Charlie, Stroke Kilo Echo 7 Victor Lima Charlie. I'm going to say 73. Have a wonderful day.